Aloha, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the new week, 59th of May 2025. As always, I'm Atomashi Daniel, Vest Charles Global Market Analyst. So, we're going to be looking at a few pairs this week. Okay, and starting with our fundamental analysis, we're looking at the GBP USD, the Euro USD, the XAU USD, that's gold, and finally, we're going to be looking at Bitcoin. Now, what do we have typically for this week? Today is a somewhat technicals day because we only expect the US ISM services data. And of all the data that's released from the US, we know that this one is not so significant in that it doesn't really move the markets the way all the significant data do. Hence, it's a somewhat technicals day. Okay, Tuesday is a complete technicals day for us. We do not expect any high impact news. And on Wednesday, the US federal funds rate, okay, the FOMC press conference and the FOMC statement from the US. The expectation from the US is that they're going to leave uh, the federal funds rate as it is. We expect the Fed chair, Jerome Powell, to leave the federal funds rate as it is. Okay, if anything, it perhaps might even do more cuts, especially considering with the current tariff wars with China, okay, and other countries that is trying to push inflation in the US to higher levels, okay, and if this inflation gets to levels not quite welcome by the Fed Chair Board, we might have more rate cuts, perhaps maybe more aggressive rate cuts to counteract the fiscal policies put in place by Donald Trump and his government. We also have the Bank of England's monetary policy report and the official bank rate. So, two major interest rate figures expected this week. We have the official bank rate from the UK and the federal funds rate from the US. In short, it's central banks week coming from two major English speaking countries. Okay. And keep in mind, we have the possible US China trade deal. Okay. The US China trade deal is possible that any of if this happens, we could have an appreciation of the US dollar across board. Now, for Bitcoin, of course, it could be influenced by tariff war escalations, like the US China trade deal or trade war with all other countries that the US has got stock in play. And then perhaps uh, an escalation could influence Bitcoin. A trade deal could also influence Bitcoin. Whereas a trade deal could push the pair BTC USD perhaps briefly bearish, and the fact that the chart is looking quite bearish right now is also a good indication that that could also happen. Now, let's go into the charts. Let's go into the charts. So what do we have? Um, we're going to be starting out with the Euro USD. And what do we have on this guy? First, on the weekly chart, we see that it hit a significant resistance point right here, 1.1566, which coincided to January 2019, and perhaps maybe even if you follow the vertical line, October 2017, right? And then on the daily chart, we see slight negative divergence right there, slight negative divergence, okay, quite visible. On the same daily chart, we see that price has been nicely overbought, okay, on the RSI, okay. On the 4-hour chart, however, it seems as though we have a heads and shoulders pattern. It's not a strong heads and shoulders pattern. If you follow the solid yellow circles there, 1, 2, and 3, it looks like a head and shoulders pattern, perhaps trying to recover the fair value gap. Okay, a somewhat fair value gap right here. So my key support level on this guy is my key support level on the Euro USD is at 1.1264. Okay, right now, if price is able to break past 1.1307, we could see price touch 1.1285 and below that 1.1264. 1.1264 being my key support level. If it goes below that, we could see price touch 1.1245, below that 1.1229, below that 1.1200 psychological level, and below that 1.1185. And if it goes below that, we could see it target the 200-day moving average right here. That's the thick red line. On the flip side, if price decides to go quite bullish, if it breaks above 1.1413, we could see it touch 1.1438. Above that, 1.1456. Above that, 1.1480. And above that, 1.1493. Perhaps playing around there at 1.1500 psychological level. That's for the Euro USD. My outlook, I am bullish in the short term. Okay. I consider short-term bullish positions for bearish positions later on. Generally speaking, I'm bearish for the possible recovery of that fair value gap. Okay, but it looks like, especially on the even on the weekly chart right there, if you look at the weekly chart, it looks as though price um, has formed an evening star and is trying to uh, a strongly bearish evening star, however, because he broke past the 50% mark of this bull, and we could see a strong bearish movement on this guy right here. But we should also open our minds to the possibilities of a slight bullish move. Okay, I'm waiting for the bearish break, but I'm also open to short bullish positions on this pair. Now, let's go to the GBP USD. The almighty pound dollar has been moving in a nice ascending channel, as we see on the weekly chart right there. Very nice ascending channel. And um, it's been, it looks quite overbought on the RSI. If you look very carefully, it looks very nicely overbought on the daily chart and on the weekly chart. Very nice overbought, close to overbought levels there. On the daily chart, we also see slight negative divergence. Okay, slight negative divergence right there. 4-hour chart, also some negative divergence. So what am I looking out for? Typically, it has formed somewhat something similar to a double top pattern, but it looks as though it wants to test higher levels with a double top pattern, higher levels first and from lower time frames. So I have my trend line drawn, a key break of the trend line, a break of the trend line level could see it touch 1.3331. Okay, and if we're being exact as to where it could break, if it breaks past 1.3306 going up, there's a strong break above that. Okay, that's a resistance level, not a key resistance level. If it goes above that, we could see it touch 1.3331. If it goes above that, 1.3348. And above that, we could see price touch 1.3361. Above that, 1.3377. And above that, 1.3393. Okay, which could, just like the euro, also play around psychological level of 3340, 1.3400. Now, on the other side, if price happens to go below 1.3253, okay, that's my key support level. I'm going to consider sell positions to 3234, below that 3211, below that 3200, below that 3177, below that 3147. Okay, that's my GBP USD. Next, the almighty gold. We've had great profits from last week. We had 26 take profits. You don't want to miss that. From our last weekly outlook, we had about 26 take profits. Ladies and gentlemen, you don't want to miss that. So try to look for these key levels. Now, for gold, gold is looking quite interesting. It broke past um, our key support area last week, if you were in the Telegram channel. Okay. And that support area was 3264. Okay. Going forward, if it further breaks below 3196 or perhaps the psychological level of 3200, I'll consider major sell positions to 3167, 3136, below that 3100, below that 3057. And if it happens to break above 3320, key resistance level, I'm going to consider buying to 3352, 3370, above that 3386, and above that 3406. In the short term, however, um, there are no specifically peculiar patterns as to what it wants to do right now. It's still playing around the key support level of last week. Okay, if it breaks beyond that 3264, we could see it touch 33. We could see it touch 3300 psychological level, and above that 3320 before it starts to touch higher resistance levels. Okay. Um, on the flip side, if price, as I said, goes below 3212, we could see it. So let's put our key support level there. Let's put one key support level. There you go. If it goes below 3223, we could see it touch 3212 and perhaps psychological level of 3200. Okay, and if it happens to go below that, which is my key support level, considering the start of the week, okay, we could see price touch 3167, below that 3136, okay, below that perhaps 3100 psychological level, and below that 3057. Ladies and gentlemen, this is gold. My outlook on this guy, I am bearish. We also see, if you look very closely, the formation of a nice evening star, looking as though price wants to test nice lower levels. Okay. I'm open to short-term bullish positions because it looks like that's what he wants to do here. Go briefly bullish before the drop. Okay, but I'm majorly bearish on gold, especially based on the fundamentals that there could be a US-China trade deal this week. And if that happens, the dollar is gonna strengthen across board, and we'll see perhaps a deep dive on gold USD. Now, for the almighty Bitcoin, what have we seen on this guy? So this guy right now is formed very nice negative divergence, very nice negative divergence. Okay, and what has it done? It has formed two key areas. We've got key resistance area 95643 and key support area 92813. If price breaks past 95643, we could see it touch um, 96124, above that 96379, above that 96641, above that 97063, and above that 97581. If price on the flip side breaks below 92813, we could see it touch 91917, below that 91076, below that 8989984 or 90,000 mark, and below that 89,000, below that 87715. On the VEX straddle platform, you want to take notes. So my outlook on this guy, because of the negative divergence and the possibilities of the US trade deal, I am bearish, but in the short term bearish positions on Bitcoin, US dollar. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for our outlook for this week. Okay, it was great to have you. Watch out for our Telegram channel. Come there for daily outlooks and all other signals, possible advice, and entry levels. I'll see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye bye.